The major thing that's missing then is an African consciousness.
Yes, sir.
Is an African solidarity. Is an African identity. And an African-centered purpose. And a commitment to the advancement of African people. The only thing is missing is our failure to see ourselves as a nation and to organize ourselves as a nation. To become a nation in America, to gain control of our internal markets in America, to gain a good significant amount of ownership of the mainstream economic system. We just don't want to own the mom and pop stores in the black community. We want to own them downtown. We're going to own them in the malls. And not only are we going to own them downtown and in the malls, we're going to own good chunks of Xerox. We want to own good chunks of IBM. We want to own good chunks of Con Ed with their cheating self out there, overcharging black churches and everything. They even overcharging the people who pray a lot. And despite all their prayers, Con Ed came right in and hiked their bills right up. And we got more churches than anybody. I guess that's why they charge us more. In the future, what is going on here today is that corporations will literally be sovereign in the world, not governments. The NAFTA agreement, the GATT agreements have transferred the power of governments to international bodies so that these international bodies will be able to overrule the U.S. Congress. They will be able to overrule the U.S. Supreme Court. And if there are trade disputes and other disputes between nations, if United States laws about pollution and so forth are seen as hindrances to trade in the world, these countries can take the United States to an international court and have that court have the United States to abrogate its own environmental laws and other laws in the interest of world trade or penalize the United States. Why then are you electing governments? Why are you electing people to office when the power to determine this nation's laws and determine trade and so forth is put in the hands of international bodies? And who are these international bodies protecting? The trade between corporations. And who owns these corporations? White boys, Chinese boys, French boys, and the other boys in the world. If then the corporations are going to be ruling the world, then we must be major owners in those corporations. We must be in a position to see that if they make moves, we can protect the interests of our people. Once then we get control, and we must get control first of our internal market, because we're going to use that wealth to buy into the larger market, and then we're going to fully engage as a nation into international trade. Because this is what nations do. They just say that people, we're going to create jobs by engaging in international trade across the African diaspora and in the world. We see the diaspora as a punishment. And our diaspora now is our best asset. We now have got to reverse the way we deal with things. We've got to stop looking at ourselves as the victims of propaganda. We've got to look at how can we use propaganda proactively to advance our interests. We've got to stop looking at the diaspora as a sign of our miserableness and look at it now in terms of how can we empower ourselves. You see, in order for the European to build an international economic system, he had to create a deliberate diaspora. You see, when we talk about people being colonized, we get the wrong idea. It wasn't that the Africans were so much colonies of the Europeans. It was actually the Europeans in Africa that were the colonies. You see?
That's right.
Because the Africans were not trading with the Europeans. It was the European colonists trading with the Europeans. You see, so the colonists came into Africa and over the place to extract the wealth there and to claim that wealth and to trade with their counterparts. And therefore, these colonies were deliberately created, and they then were used as means to create a global economic system. Now, when we look at the fact that we are throughout South and Central America in large numbers, you see, and of course in the Caribbean, and of course in Africa and so forth, we must now begin to look at this situation as a basis for the creation of a Pan-African economic system that can rival the Asians and the Europeans. And therefore, what we must learn now is about import and export trade and international trade. We must begin to learn about capital markets. We must begin to learn about investment banking. We must begin to learn about syndication of money and how you raise wealth and create wealth so that you can build corporations and so forth. And then it is there, because what I see African people in America becoming, I see the African people in America becoming the central marketing factor in the African community. We are in this nation, and we are one of its largest markets. We want to now make this market available to African manufactured products, because at this point the United States is blocking those products out. And Africa cannot become a manufacturing and industrial nation if no nation will buy its manufacturing. Quick example, Ghana, which sold cocoa beans, decided that the money was in the processing of the cocoa beans. But that's the white man's game, isn't it? Nestle wanted that. Hershey wanted that. They just wanted Ghana to sell the raw beans, you see. And they went out and bought the factories so that they could turn the cocoa beans into cocoa and refine chocolate and sell that, because that's where the money end of the deal was. The United States and these other Europeans would not let those products cross their borders. At this point now, as African Americans, we must empower ourselves in such a way that we are going to get this government, the same way we rallied for South Africa, the same way we rallied for Haiti, the same way we rallied for Namibia, the same way we rallied for any African nation that has problems. And we go to the Washington government and get them to change their policy in the interest of the liberation of African people of the world. And we're not through now. The next game is to do this, to knock down those tariffs that they have against African nations, to get this nation to relieve the Africans of that debt that they have laid upon them and make their lives impossible. This is the political goal of the African community, and to control and hold our money and squeeze their economic balls until we get what we want from them and change the nature of this people. And if Hershey is going to block the buying of African refined cocoa, we'll drink another hot chocolate in our lives, because we're not going to let it happen. You understand what's got to go on here? You dig it? This is the kind of game, because the other deal is you want them to develop their capacity to manufacture. You're going to stop going down to this Gap and buying that garbage down there until you recognize if it's going to be sold and you're going to buy it, you're going to see that those clothes are sewn in Africa and sewn in the Caribbean and sewn in Central and South America. You're not going to put $1 into it. You see? You understand? So as you bring them into being, sewing and creating, manufacturing and so forth, they will grow technologically and they will advance industrially and create jobs for their people, because their African American brothers and sisters are making their dollars available through their product, and they are opening the borders of America to their products, and this is how you advance. That's why the African American, the Africans in America are the key. We are the key group to the advancement of Africans all over the world.
Yes, sir.
And you have to understand the role that we must play. But we're not going to let this Nigerian oil move from white-owned hands in Nigeria to white-owned hands in America. We got to learn about the capital markets in Africa. And we got to see investment in Africa as a natural place for us, as investment in America was a natural place for the investment of the English, and a natural place for the investment of the Frenchmen, and a natural place for the investments of Europeans. Okay. Do you know that the American nation was a debtor nation until 1915? Yeah, we think this is the first time America was a debtor nation. No, it's not. Because of why was it a debtor nation? Because the wealth of Europe was being exported to America to build up its infrastructure and to develop its industrial base. And America's market was protected from competition until its industries got strong enough to compete in the world. And that's what you got to do to your internal markets. You've got to sharpen your stores and protect your stores against the competition of other people. You've got to sharpen it with your corporation and protect your corporations until they grow strong enough to compete on their own against other people and other races and other groups. You've got to see that Africa is a natural place for us to invest in. And we've got to become the financiers of African development the world over. And we've got to become the marketers of African products in America and in the world. We've got to become the designers of product. We then will play a role in the totality of the African political and economic system. And every African product, manufactured and otherwise, should move through the hands of African people in America. And we should be marketing them to the Woolworths and to the Walmarts and to all the rest of these gangsters. If they can sell irons made in China, and there are 10 times as many black people in this country as there are Chinese, then they can sell irons made in Nigeria. If we can buy Chinese-made irons in Woolworths and in these other places, we can buy irons made in the Caribbean, irons made in South America, irons made in Africa, etc. And we can see stamped on the made in Nigeria, made in Ghana, made in here, made in there. And those irons and those products and those cheap fans and all that other stuff can be wholesaled by African Americans and sold and marketed by African Americans, both through African American retail and European retail situation. And therefore we create jobs for African Americans here in America, and we create jobs for Africans the world over. We got it. All we got to do is take it. Thank you for your attention.